But mostly, let me thank all of you for coming out this evening. Let me thank you for having the courage and the vision to be part of a political revolution. A revolution that will not just the 1%. I am going to, in a moment, talk about the differences that exist between Secretary Clinton and myself, and the differences that exist between Donald Trump and myself. But this campaign is really about much more than the differences that exist between myself and my opponents. What this campaign is really about is for all of us together to take on the status quo and to understand that in the richest country in the history of the world, we can be much, much more than we are today. The reason that this campaign has already won caucuses and primaries in 16 states throughout the country. The reason that we have closed the gap between Secretary Clinton and myself, which when we began was 60 points, today we are in some polls a few points ahead. The reason that we are defeating Donald Trump in national and state polls by 15 to 20 points. The reason is that we are doing something very unusual in contemporary American politics. We are telling the truth. We are talking and fighting for issues that the establishment would prefer to sweep right under the rug. We are talking about the absolute need to reform a corrupt campaign finance system. Democracy is not a complicated concept. It means you have a vote, you have a vote, and you have a vote. It does not mean that billionaires and their super PACs should be able to buy elections. It does not mean that Republican governors should be able to suppress the vote and deny people the right to participate in the political process. When a handful of billionaires, like the Koch brothers and a few others, are capable of spending more money in a campaign than either the Democratic or Republican parties, that is not democracy, that is oligarchy. We will not accept that. It is not acceptable to me that in our country we have one of the lowest voter turnout rates of any major country on earth. I want to see this country become a vibrant democracy in which we have one of the highest voter turnout rates in the world. This campaign is talking not only about ending a corrupt campaign finance system, not only telling the billionaires that they're not going to buy the United States government, we are also going to take on a rigged economy. In the United States of America, it is not acceptable to me, nor I think to you, that the top 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. In the United States of America, it is not acceptable that the 20 wealthiest people own more wealth than the bottom 150 million Americans, half of our population. In the United States of America, it is not acceptable that one family, the Walton family of Walmart, owns more wealth than the bottom 40%. And I'll tell you what a rigged economy means every single day. It means that the Walton family, owning the largest private sector company in the world, pays their workers wages that are so low that many of those workers are forced to be on food stamps or Medicaid. And what the rigged economy is about is the middle class paying taxes to subsidize the wealthiest family in this country who pays their workers inadequate wages. There's a lot of talk among Republican governors about welfare. Well, let me tell you about welfare. The major family who receives welfare in this country is not some poor family in Connecticut or Vermont. It is the Walton family. And I say to the Walton family, get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage. But it is not just the grotesque level of wealth inequality in America that we are going to address. It is the fact that despite a huge increase in technology and productivity, workers in this country, by the millions, are working longer hours for lower wages. Many of our people are not working one job, they're working 2 jobs or 3 jobs. We need an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%. Now, right now, here in the great city of New Haven, we see almost a metaphor for what's happening throughout this country. Right here in this great city, we have one of the outstanding institutions of higher education all over the world. That's what Yale University is. And we should be proud of this great university, but a few miles away from here in this same city, we have children who are getting totally inadequate education. Right here, one of the great universities in the world, and a few blocks away from here, kids who in a million years would never dream that they could even get a college education. Right here, we have a university that has an endowment of $24 billion. But all over this city and in this state, we have children who are living in desperate poverty. In this city alone, 36% of the children are living in poverty. I was in Baltimore the other day tens of thousands of people addicted to heroin, 40–50% unemployment rates in minority communities. Brothers and sisters, if this country is going to survive in any moral sense, in any sustainable economic sense, we are going to change our national priorities. Every day I am asked by people, how does it happen that we have trillions of dollars to spend on a war in Iraq we never should have gotten into? But somehow we do not have the funds available to rebuild our inner cities or provide decent education for our children. We are going to change those priorities. We are going to tell the wealthiest people in this country who are doing phenomenally well. We're going to tell the largest corporations in this country who are making huge profits and in some cases not paying a nickel in federal taxes that those days are over. We are not going to continue seeing children in America go hungry, veterans sleeping out on the streets, and multinational corporations stashing their profits in the Cayman Islands and avoiding their fair share of taxes. Not acceptable that millions of people continue to work for starvation wages. We are going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Not acceptable that women are making 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. We are going to establish pay equity for women. Not acceptable that large multinational corporations have shut down in Connecticut, shut down in Vermont, thrown millions of American workers out on the street looking for cheap labor abroad. We are going to end those disastrous trade policies and demand that corporate America invest in this state, in this country, and provide decent paying jobs. I was in Flint, Michigan several months ago. And what I saw in Flint, Michigan was almost impossible to believe that it was happening in the United States of America in 2016. Children being poisoned by lead in the water. But it's not just Flint. It is hundreds of communities throughout this country who are deeply worried about the quality of the water that the people are drinking. It is our wastewater plants, it is our roads, it is our bridges, it is our rail system, it is our airports, our levees, and our dams. It is the fact that in inner cities all over this country, working people are paying 40, 50, 60% of their limited incomes on housing because there is not enough affordable housing. Brothers and sisters, instead of giving tax breaks to billionaires, we're going to rebuild inner cities throughout this country. We are going to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure and create, with $1 trillion investment, 13 million decent paying jobs. This campaign is listening to ordinary Americans, not just wealthy campaign contributors. When we began this campaign, we had to make a simple choice. Do we do what every other campaign does and have a super PAC and beg the wealthy and the special interest for campaign contributions. Well, we agreed with you. We don't want a super PAC. We don't need their money. Instead, what we have done is, in this campaign, unbelievably, we have received over 7 million individual campaign contributions. Anyone know what the average contribution is? $27. This campaign, to paraphrase Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, is a campaign of the people, by the people, and for the people. This campaign does not have a super PAC going to Wall Street or going to the drug companies asking them to fund our campaign. This campaign, unlike Secretary Clinton's, has not raised $15 million from Wall Street and millions more from other special interests. This candidate has not given speeches behind closed doors on Wall Street for $225,000 a speech. Secretary Clinton has said she is prepared to release the transcripts of her speeches on Wall Street if other candidates do the same. Are you all ready here in New Haven for a dramatic announcement? All right, hold your breath, here it comes. I am announcing tonight that I am prepared to release all of the transcripts of all of the speeches I gave on Wall Street. Are you ready? Here it comes. No transcripts, no speeches, not for $225,000, not for $2.25. But you know, I've got my cell phone on and I am awaiting that call from Wall Street. And I don't want $225,000, I don't want anything, but I do want the opportunity to tell these folks to their face that their greed, their recklessness, and their illegal behavior has destroyed the lives of many, many Americans. And I would like the pleasure of telling them to their face that they were bailed out against my vote. They were bailed out by Congress because the major banks were too big to fail. Well, it turns out the 3 out of the 4 largest banks in America today are bigger now than they were when we bailed them out because they were too big to fail. Now is the time to reestablish Glass-Steagall legislation. Now is the time to break them up and create a financial system that works for small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and consumers, not a system which is an island unto itself, only concerned about their own profits. Here's another word on Wall Street. Some of you may have read that a couple of weeks ago, Goldman Sachs reached an agreement with the United States government for $5 billion. And they reached that settlement because they were selling, in the midst of the financial crisis, worthless packages of subprime mortgage loans. But here is why the American people are so angry. Turns out that a kid in Connecticut gets picked up for marijuana, that kid will have a criminal record for his entire life. But if you are an executive on Wall Street whose illegal behavior resulted in millions of people losing their jobs, their homes, their life savings, you know what happens to you? You get an increase in your compensation package. Together, we are going to bring justice to a broken criminal justice system. This campaign is listening to young people. And young people are asking me, how does it happen that with all of the technology and all of the global economy, why is it possible, if we do not turn this economy around, that the young generation of today, for the first time in the modern history of America, will likely have a lower standard of living than their parents? Now, I grew up in a family that never had any money. My parents worked hard so that their kids could do better than they did. That is the American dream of millions of families. Together, we will not allow that beautiful American dream to die. And the other thing that young people are asking me is, how does it happen that when they do the right thing, when they go out and get the education they need, the best education they can, how does it happen that they end up $30,000, $50,000, $70,000 in debt? What this campaign is about is thinking outside of the box, outside of the options that the media wants us to think in. Everybody knows that education and learning is inherent in who we are as human beings. Everybody knows that we live in a competitive global economy and we need the best educated workforce in the world. Why are we punishing millions of people for getting an education? We should be rewarding, we should be encouraging people to get an education, not punishing them. All of you know that a college degree today in many ways is the equivalent of what a high school degree was 50 years ago. 50 years ago, you had a high school degree, you go out, get a pretty good job, make it into the middle class. That's what a college degree is today. The world has changed, the economy has changed, technology has changed. People need more education. And that is why we must make, when we talk about public education, we must understand that first grade to 12th grade is not enough. We need to make public colleges and universities tuition free. a radical idea. And I don't want anybody to think it is. It exists in Germany. It exists in Scandinavia. Countries all over the world understand that their economies will not do well unless they invest in their young people so they get the best education possible. And that is precisely what we have got to do in this country. But it's not just making public colleges and universities tuition free. It is dealing with the crisis of student debt. Anybody here with student debt? Well, welcome to the club. You're part of millions. Now, in my view, if someone's gone all over the country, talked to people who are $300,000, $400,000 in debt, talked to people who dropped out of college after 2 years, $60,000 in debt, talked to a guy who's been paying off his debt for 25 years, is in more debt today than he was when he took that debt out. Talk to parents who are not only paying their own debt, they're paying their kids' debt off today. Frankly, that's crazy. People should not have their economic future destroyed because they went to college. And that is why we have got to substantially reduce student debt by allowing people with that debt to refinance their loans at the lowest interest rates they can find. And by the way, when we talk about making public colleges and universities tuition-free, that is a revolutionary concept, because there are kids here in New Haven all over this country who are in the 4th grade, in the 6th grade. They do not believe in a million years that they will ever go to college because they come from poor or working class families. Our job is to tell every child in this country that if you study hard, if you do your schoolwork well, yes, regardless of the income of your family, you will be able to get a higher. And that is revolutionary. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the African American community. I have been to Flint and seen children poisoned. I have been to Detroit and have seen a public school system on the verge of financial collapse. I have been to Baltimore, where tens of thousands of people are addicted to heroin. We have a moral obligation to rebuild the inner cities of this country. To tell the young people where unemployment is 40, 50, 60%, that their future will be decent jobs, not jail cells. This country has more people in jail than any country on earth. That is not acceptable. We are going to reform a broken criminal justice system. We're going to invest in education and jobs for our kids, not jails and incarceration. We're going to reform local police departments all over this country. I am a former mayor. I've worked hard with police officers all over my state and all over this country, and the vast majority are honest, hard-working people doing a very difficult job. But like any other public official, when a police officer breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. As a nation, we must understand understand that for the police, lethal force is the last response, not the first response. We have got to demilitarize our local police departments so they don't look like occupying armies. We have got to make police departments reflect the diversity of their communities. We have got to end corporate ownership of prisons and detention centers. We have got to make certain that when people do their time and they get out of jail, they have the right to vote. We have got to rethink the so-called war on drugs. Over the last 30 years, millions of Americans have received police records for possession of marijuana. Today, marijuana is listed under the Federal Controlled Substance Act as a Schedule I drug. That is nuts. And that is why, if elected president, we're going to take marijuana out of the Federal Controlled Substance Act. It is the decision of states whether or not to legalize marijuana, but it should not be a federal crime. But when we talk about drugs, you all know that in this state, in my state, all over this country, we are facing a major epidemic of opiate addiction and heroin addiction, and every single day, people are dying of overdose. And that tells me that we need a new approach to addiction and substance abuse. It must be addiction and substance abuse must be seen as a health issue, not a criminal issue. In mental health treatment in this country. We need to make certain that when people need mental health treatment, they get it today, not 6 months from now. Now, in that context, I'm not quite sure why your governor has cut mental health treatment in the state of Connecticut. We need to expand that treatment, not cut. There are thousands of people in this country who are walking around, who are suicidal, who are homicidal. They need treatment now. That's what we have got to provide. All over this country, you got Republicans running around. And they are talking about family values. Oh, they just love families, especially wealthy families who make campaign contributions. But you all know that when they talk about family values, what they are talking about is telling every woman here tonight, in this state, in this country, that she does not have the right to control her own body. I disagree. These Republicans are telling our gay brothers and sisters that they do not have the right to get married. I disagree. Jane and I have been married 27 years. We've got 4 great kids, 7 beautiful grandchildren. When we talk about family values, we talk about ending the international embarrassment in which the United States is the only major country on earth not to guarantee paid family and medical leave. Think outside of the box, think outside of the status quo. Think that today, a woman giving birth in Connecticut or in Vermont, if she is low-income, working-class woman, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe less, she will have to separate herself from her newborn baby, go back to work to earn enough income to take care of her family. Not acceptable. In this country, we will pass 3 months paid family and medical leave. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the Latino community. They are telling us that there are 11 million undocumented people in this country. Many of them are being exploited every day on the job because they have no legal rights. Many are living in fear and living in the shadows. Today, we have got to understand that the Congress must pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. And if Congress does not do its job, I will use the executive powers of the presidency. This campaign is listening to people whose pain is almost never heard, and that is our brothers and sisters in the Native American community. Everybody here knows that from before this country became a country, Native Americans were lied to, cheated, and treaties they negotiated were broken. We owe the Native American people more than we can ever repay. But today, on reservations throughout this country and in Native American communities, poverty rate, unemployment rate off the chart, teenage suicide horrifically high. We need to understand that Native Americans have given us so much. They have taught us, they have uniquely taught us that as human beings, we are part of nature. We must live with nature, not destroy nature. If elected president, we will have a new relationship with the Native American people. Talk about the environment, let me tell you, I am a member of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment. I have talked to scientists all over our country and all over the world. And what they have told me is clear as can be. Climate change is real. Climate change is caused by human activity. Climate change is already doing devastating harm to this country and all over the world. We have a moral responsibility to our children and grandchildren to leave them a planet that is healthy and habitable. And we need to tell the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. And that is why together we are going to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. criticized throughout this campaign for thinking too big. I've been told we gotta think in very little terms. So let me repeat what I have said before, just to make sure there is no confusion, no ambiguity. I believe that health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. I believe that there is something profoundly out of whack when every major country on earth, the UK, France, Germany, Holland, Scandinavia, Italy, Canada, all of these countries manage to provide health care to all their people, but we apparently cannot do that. Now, the Affordable Care Act, and I'm on the committee that helped write that act, has done a lot of good things. But we need to go further. Today, 29 million people still have no health insurance. Many of you and millions of Americans are underinsured with high deductibles and high co-payments. And every day, we are getting ripped off by the pharmaceutical industry, who are charging us the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. You want to hear crazy? Crazy is 1 out of 5 Americans getting a prescription from their doctor, but not being able to afford to fill that prescription. Crazy is senior citizens in New Haven, Connecticut, cutting their pills in half because they don't have the money to afford the medicine they need. Crazy is the 3 top drug companies last year making $45 billion in profit. Brothers and sisters, we need to join the rest of the industrialized world, and that is why together we will succeed in passing a Medicare for all single-payer program. Think what that will do to America. You don't have to stay at a job you don't like just because you get good health insurance there. We can free up the entrepreneurial spirit of America. People can go out on their own, start great businesses, and have health insurance. People can go to the doctor when they are sick, not worry about a co-payment or a deductible. And a Medicare for All program will save the average middle-class family thousands of dollars a year in their health care costs. Now, this campaign is about differences that I have with Secretary Clinton. Let me lay out just a few of them. Today, the minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. She wants to raise the minimum wage to $12 an hour. Not good enough. Together, we're going to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. Unlike Republican Secretary Clinton understands that climate change is real, that's a good thing. But if we're going to transform our energy system, we have to have the guts to stand up to the fossil fuel industry and impose a tax on carbon. That's a way to transform our energy system. That is my view. That is the view of a leading environmental economist all over the world. That is not Secretary Clinton's view. I believe that one of the great crises we are facing today, and it will only get worse in the future, is the need to make sure we have clean drinking water for people in this country and around the world. If we do not get our act together, the day will come when wars will be fought not over oil, but over water. That is why I believe that starting yesterday, we have got to impose a ban on fracking. We cannot allow our water system to be poisoned by that technology. Secretary Clinton does not agree, and in fact, as Secretary of State, she pushed the fracking technology on countries all over the world. A great nation is judged not by how many billionaires it has or how many nuclear bombs it has. A great nation is judged by how we treat the weakest and most vulnerable amongst us. And while the media may not talk about it, here's the truth. There are millions and millions of senior citizens, disabled veterans, people with disabilities who are trying to survive on $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 a year Social Security. And the truth is, nobody can survive on $10,000 a year Social Security. And that is why I have outlined a very specific program to raise Social Security benefits by lifting the cap on taxable income. That is my view. That is not Secretary Clinton's view, and I ask her to come on board. Brothers and sisters, everybody here knows that real change never takes place. Okay, can we get a doctor over there? We got a medical issue. Secret Service, can we get a doctor over there? Okay, there's somebody on the way.
We love you, Bernie!
Okay. All right, is there a doctor or medical tech in the area? All right, somebody, where is the person hurting? All right, right up there. Raise your hand, guys. Okay, let's get somebody right there. All right, somebody there ready? Person being taken care of? Oh, okay? Okay. All right. Everybody here knows a profound truth of American history, and that is that real change never takes place from the top on down. It always takes place from the bottom on up. 100+ years ago, workers in this country were forced to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Children were working in factories, children were working in the fields. Workers had no say on the job, they could be fired arbitrarily. And working people came together by the millions to say that we are not beasts of burden, we are not animals. We are going to form unions and negotiate contracts. Workers by the millions stood up for human dignity. 200 years ago or longer, in the midst of the abomination of slavery, African Americans and their allies stood up and proclaimed a different vision for America. A vision in which we would wipe out racism and bigotry and discrimination. And we will never know the names of the people who were killed in that struggle, who went to jail, who were beaten, who were lynched. We will not know all of those names. But millions of people stood up and said, sorry, the vision of this country is not hatred and discrimination. We are going to end bigotry. It is easy to forget, and many of the children do not know, that 100 years ago, not a long time, from an historical perspective, women in this country 100 years ago did not have the right to vote, did not have the right to get an education, did not have the right to do the jobs they wanted. Society defined for them what their role was, to stay home and have babies. But women and their male allies stood up, fought back, went to jail, went on hunger strikes, sometimes died to say, in America, women will not be second-class citizens. If we were here 10 years ago, no time at all, somebody jumps up and says, you know, Bernie, I think that in the year 2015, gay marriage will be made legal in every state in this country. The person next to her would have said, you are nuts, that can't happen. You're thinking too big. You're asking for too much. There's too much hatred out there. There's too much bigotry. But what happened is the gay community and their straight allies stood up, fought back. And they say loudly and clearly that in America, people will have the right to love whoever they want, regardless of gender. No time at all. If we were here, somebody jumps up and says, you know, Bernie, this $7.25 federal minimum wage, starvation wage, we got to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. The person next to him would have said, $15 an hour? You want to more than double the minimum wage? You're crazy. You're thinking too big. It's impossible. Maybe $8, maybe $10, $15, no way. But what happened is that workers in the fast food industry, McDonald's and Burger King, Wendy's, they went out on strike. They stood up, they fought back, and they told this country, we can't make it on a starvation wage. And then what happened 2 years ago? Seattle, Washington, $15. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Oregon, California, New York State, $15 an hour. Here is my point, and it's a simple one. Do not believe what the media or anyone else tells you that we cannot change the status quo. Get your head into an austerity way of thinking that we got to cut this and cut that. We don't have to do that. And all over this country now, people are taking a hard look at the status quo. And they're looking out and they say, why is it that we have more income and wealth inequality than any other major country? Why is it that we have a proliferation of millionaires and billionaires, but 30+% of the kids in New Haven, Connecticut are living in poverty? Why is it that workers in this country have to work 2 or 3 jobs to cobble together some income and some health care? Why is it that women make 79 cents on the dollar? Why is it that our infrastructure is crumbling before our eyes? Why is it that billionaire corporations in a given year pay nothing in federal income taxes? Why is it that we have a corrupt campaign finance system that allows super PACs to buy elections? Why is it that we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee paid family medical leave or health care for all? People all over this country are looking around them and they're no longer accepting media mythology. They're no longer believing what establishment politicians are telling us. They know that in the richest country in the history of the world, we can and must do much better. And let me tell you what no presidential candidate will tell you. No president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can do it alone. I can't do it alone because Wall Street and corporate America and the corporate media and the wealthy campaign contributors are so powerful that no one person can do it alone. What we need are millions of Americans working people, middle-class people, young people, standing up and saying as loudly as they can, enough is enough. And yes, we can create a government that works for all of us and not just wealthy campaign contributors. On Tuesday, there is going to be a very important Democratic primary here in Connecticut. And what I've learned in this campaign so far is that when the voter turnout is high, we win. When the voter turnout is low, we lose. So our job on Tuesday is to create the highest voter turnout for a Democratic primary in the history of the state of Connecticut. And let us have the great state of Connecticut help lead this country into the political revolution.
Some comments or something.